Reverend Dr. Stephen Whitaker, Pastor, Head of Staff, United Presbyterian Church, an amazing leader, a wonderful friend who stands for social justice and service in the city and represents the interfaith effort of more than 200 churches in the central Illinois area. Reverend Whitaker, please give him the applause.
Pastor Powell, I love what you said about fear and how that often drives us. In the Gospels that I love, the opposite of faith isn't doubt. Doubt's okay. Doubt can actually strengthen our faith. The opposite of faith in Scriptures is fear. The most common command God gives God's people is, do not be afraid. And yet how often does fear drive us to act the way we act? Because at the root of fear is our want to control things. And when we control things, we can't give up and give over to God. Christians are called to give up our lives to God. Paul says to be living sacrifices. In Islam, it really means submission to God. We have that in common. To not let our fears control us, but to give our lives over to God in God's way. So our church, United Presbyterian, has been really praying and thinking about Jesus' command to love our neighbors, just as Richwood Christian Church is. And we've been thinking about that and led our mission committee to ask the question, what neighbors do we really need to reach out to do a better job of loving? And they decided in the wake of all this Islamophobia, they wanted to write a letter to our church, encouraging them to come to a Sunday school for a month to learn more about Islam. And we had the opportunity to invite local people from the Muslim community to join and to share. And I had the privilege of meeting with Imam Mufti and learning and with Dr. Muhammad Salim. And they had people come and share with our church so we could ask questions and get to know on a personal level. To break down these fears we have of that person. It's easy to say them when them has no name and no face and no child. We had a 16-year-old student from Dunlap named Marwa come and share with us. She represented herself amazingly well, and it blew our church away. Like, this person, this young girl has such faith and trust and hope. And that gave us more faith and trust and hope. And so as we learned things like, most Muslims aren't actually Arab. A lot of people didn't know that. We learned about the 5 pillars of Islam. We learned the difference between a Muslim and a believer. Just like many people might say they're Christian, but how many people actually follow the way of Jesus? There's some differences sometimes. We learn those things. And I want to share a story about, I think, the most profound day of my ministry. It was about 3 weeks ago. I received a manila envelope in the mail. I sent a letter to all the Muslim communities a couple months earlier, just trying to say, I know it's probably tough to be in your shoes right now. You probably have a lot of people looking at you funny. You're hearing things about yourself on the news. Your kids probably have hate spewed at them at school and judgment. And I just want you to know that we stand with you. Is there anything we can do to make this time a little bit easier? Please let us know. When this manila envelope was a letter from a 4th grade teacher at the Islamic school on Charter Oak. Miss Saeed, and she wrote, your letter gave us such hope. It restored our faith in humanity. People actually want to reach out. And my students, my 4th grade students, wanted to write you letters back. And in this packet were 20 letters from 4th grade students. And they said things like, thank you for extending your hand to us. We would love for people from your church to come and teach us new things like knitting. They were really preoccupied with knitting for some reason. I don't know why. They said, it would be great if we could take a field trip to your church. One boy said, I've never been to a church before. I want to know what it is that you believe. I've never been to a Christian church before. Shouldn't we be allowed to understand what each other believes because we're brothers and sisters? The smart boy right there. Smarter than a lot of our leaders sometimes. One girl, I know, cheers for the boy. One girl wrote, I hope we can work together. I hope we can teach each other things because we're called to love each other. That's what we believe. And I hear that's what you believe too. Isn't that what we believe? In our scriptures, it talks about having faith like a child, and a little child shall lead them. And here are these fourth grade students writing about why can't we come and learn from each other and partner with each other and teach each other new skills. One boy said, we'll teach you everything we know. It'll probably only take a day. And I said, well, great. And so we're going to partner with that fourth grade class. We're going to go to the school, we're going to learn from them, and they're going to learn from us, and we're going to partner with activities. Maybe that's a small start. Most big things start really small. What if everyone here found one person to start a relationship with? Maybe it's watching the Cardinals in the playoffs. Maybe this year the Cubs will get further in the playoffs, and you can watch them too. I don't know about the Bears. They're lost hope. But what if we all did that? We found relationships and got to know each other and actually loved our neighbor. Because Jesus never says just love your Christian neighbor or your neighbor that does his or her lawn the way you would like them to do because they're next to you, or the neighbor with the signs in their yard that you happen to agree with or like. It just says love your neighbor. As we've been studying Islam and Judaism and Hinduism at our church, we found something similar in all these religions. You can argue about whether we worship the same God or not. We can have some great discussions on that, and I hope we do. That'd be really fun. I love that kind of stuff. You can argue some of that. But there's a word in all these religions we've studied and learned about. There's one word that's the common word between us all. And that one word, that's what we can build on. That's what we can look to for the future. That one word is love. You've heard it up here before already, love. This event's called No Islam, No Peace. It's not because necessarily if you understand Islam now you're going to find inner peace, but I think it's when you know Islam and you know Judaism, you know Christianity, you know these things, you hear that word. It's in the very texts that are sacred. It's in the very lives of the believers and the followers. When you know that word, and you believe in that word, and you live in that word, that's when we find peace. It's not in theologies. It's not in voting records. It's not in money. It's not in what we call ourselves. It's in that one word. And you here today, you have decided, I'm going to live that word, or at least explore that word, and that word of love, that's how we find peace together. It's not in our differences, it's not in our politics, it's in how we love. And you being here, risking standing up for an hour, sitting with people you don't know, taking a chance to come to a place you haven't visited before, that means you have enough love in you to want to love your neighbor and want love to be the foundation of all that we are. That's how we know peace. So I just want to encourage you, don't let this be the end. It's easy to say, I went to an event, I'm good now. Everything's solved, we had an event and it was a packed house. If this is the end, then this is the end. Don't let it be the end. Find ways to do it at your church, your neighborhood, your synagogue, your mosque, your small group, your bridge club. Let it continue. Let love grow. Because love is stronger than death, and love is stronger than fear. And that's our common word. Thank you.
I would just like to share something very interesting. This theme, No Islam, No Peace, was not my idea. It was his idea. Something which even most Muslims don't know.